Hello, trading is closed on July 10th, 2020. This was quite a day, so let's go over our calls from yesterday and then see what this rally accomplished. Well, here's what we said. We said the pattern had the early high. Typically, it's a rally day with the high in the final hour. We got that. We thought that the bears had a great chance to win the day if we gapped under today's low. And we said if we had to wait for the open, because if that didn't happen, the idea fell through. Well, we were pretty far south overnight, but by the time we opened, that was reversed. So that never happened. And we actually rallied past some important points today, so we'll have to see how that changes the long-term picture. Before I do the rest of the analysis, every month or two I have to remind people of some common courtesies. No one who's been in the market for any length of time would do any of these things, but I have some people who obviously haven't been doing this stuff very long, who aren't aware of some rules of common courtesy, and I'm just periodically going to remind people that I'll block anyone who's rude. If you think my analysis is no good and want to go online and tell everybody, that's fine. Just get your own channel. Don't do it on mine. I've had people who post replies and use profanity. You want to swear? You can swear all you want. Don't do it on my channel. If you do, I'll block you. I've had people who post replies, tell me about dating sites or something. If you want to advertise, you can go to YouTube and pay to run an ad. If you post irrelevant material, I'll block you. I've had people who posted things saying how great their stock advice is. If you want to tell people how great it is, buy an ad. If you want to have your own channel, get one. If you want me to run your stuff the way I run Norm Winsky's, write me and ask. If you have good stuff and you're as good as he is, and you're willing to share, that's fine. If you try to sneak it on, I'll block you. And finally, if you want to post your prediction without giving the reason, get your own channel. Don't do it on mine. End of speech. Okay, now let's get on to today's action. Early on, MEJT gave an ultimate sell signal. Here's the target. There's no time limit. Usually you don't have to wait long. Says this whole rally is false, gives us another lower target, most likely by early Tuesday. In the afternoon, it gave a buy signal, and that clearly worked. But after I wrote the book, I found out it also had a lower target, which hasn't printed yet. The asterisk means it's a rule which isn't in the book. And there's an optional target, 95% chance we see 31.65.36, 20 points lower on Monday. And if we don't, we forget it. Now, 95% isn't 100%. Sometimes that's going to fail, but those are the odds. So we have a whole bunch of stuff saying this will retrace. That being said, if it weren't for the system, I think this is a very bullish pattern. Start low, rally all day long, particularly on a Friday. Almost always it's going to continue Monday. That says exactly the opposite. Well, this is the general idea. We think we completed 5 waves up. We're in an ABC. We think we're done with B, but that's called into question by today's action. At some point, at this point I can't say when, we're going to get a sharp wave C down. But saying when that starts is not so easy. This was my original count. It hasn't been invalidated yet, but it hasn't paid off either. We did have an alternate count. That was this. And you can probably play with it to make this high have these ratios work. It's really close enough. Could be right. But this count of the subwaves, which looked so good, isn't right because we overtook this high, which wasn't supposed to happen if the alternate count worked. We were down here someplace in futures, and we were all set for a wave, red 3 down. All the bulls, all the pairs had to do to make this work was continue dropping. We were down pretty far, as I remember, and to reverse like that is quite an accomplishment. Good chance the rally's not over. Here was our trend line. We broke through this trend line, confirmed it the next day, and that really should have been it. Instead, we have no follow-through. It's a bit suspicious when you go back over the trend line, but what's really suspicious is this other trend line has been hit really 5 days in a row, and the more times you hit a trend line, the more likely it is that you'll break through, ideally by gapping over it. Now, nothing says we have to do that. If we gap down, undercut these lows, everything is on track again. But when you don't get follow through here, and you bang on resistance all these times, you have to be prepared for your general idea to fail and for us to gap up, and that's why I take things a day at a time. Well, Monday's pattern has the early low doesn't mean you won't gap up. You have conflicting indicators. Here's what usually happens. Today, neither one of these things happens. Sometimes neither one happens. But usually you get one of these first two things. Well, MEJT is adamant the rally will retrace, gives us numerous lower targets. Unless we gap up smartly, my rules say that's the call for Monday, those numbers. But be aware, about once or twice a year I get 10 or 11 failed targets in the cluster. In the past they've always printed, but if they don't print within their preferred time frames, the time frames are all done by early Tuesday. If they don't print then, they don't have to print anytime soon, and they don't preclude us from going much higher before they eventually print. Rallying all day, particularly on a Friday, typically carries through into Monday's open. Had a great setup for a drop. All we needed to do was to follow through on the negative overnight action. We rallied instead, and when a great setup fails, it typically fails in grand style. So I can't rule out gapping up in spite of those lower targets when the market reopens. What the bears need to do is to gap down smartly and invalidate today's action promptly, and I'm not really confident they'll be able to do it. They had a great chance today, and they couldn't do it. So again, we'll have to wait to see what happens at Monday's open. If you're a bear, you want us to gap down smartly and undercut this low. But if you're a bull, I think you might win again, because if we gap over this, it's not inconceivable that we go significantly higher, although I can't predict it for certain at this time. And that's today's call.